Cave diver training in the Mayan underworld, deep under the Mexican jungle, in today's episode on the Dive Saga channel. Well, hello guys, and welcome back to another episode on the Dive Saga channel. Today, a special episode because I am going to walk you through my past week during my IANTD Intro to Cave Diving training. It was difficult to get some footage because obviously as a student I cannot be filming and the focus was really on the cave diver training, but we have some cool footage behind the scenes and I'm definitely going to share my experience with you. Tomorrow, a special extra episode as we're going to dive into the diving equipment that was used during the cave diver training, because I know a lot of you are also interested in that. So make sure to subscribe to the Dive Saga channel if you haven't already. That way you'll get a notification tomorrow. If you're watching this later, you can look for that episode and I will provide a link as well. So let's get started. First of all, I've been actually cavern diving a lot already in the last few years. Every year I organize a Dive Saga trip to Mexico, and that trip is a cavern diving trip in the Mexican cenotes. Now, you can cavern dive safely if you're a certified diver and if you follow a certified dive guide who is also a full cave diver. However, you may choose to pursue some training for yourself, and that's what I did. In my case, I decided to choose the instructor and not so much the agency. I'm a PADI course director, so an instructor trainer. However, PADI as an agency does not offer cave diving certifications. Yeah, they leave that to the more specialized agencies. You then still have options, but I chose my instructor, which is Julia Gugelmeyer. I chose her because last year, you will actually find a video on the Dive Saga channel. We did a photo shoot with world famous underwater cave photographer Tom St. George, and our safety diver, our guide for the shoot was Julia. So I had some first-hand experience with how she approaches cave diving, how she approaches safety, and also the level of strictness and diligence, which is something that I really enjoyed. And so we ended up with an IANTD course. Yeah, IANTD has 3 levels. You have cavern diver, intro to cave, and full cave diver. And I was advised, and I agree with that advice, to do intro to cave diver and take a break there. Yeah, so sometimes it can be very tempting to go immediately to full cave diver. But of course, if you bite off too much too soon and then don't practice it for a while, you may actually lose everything that you have trained. So my choice was to go as far as intro to cave diver. What does that mean? Well, let's break down the different levels. For cavern, you're basically certified to go inside an overhead environment to a maximum linear distance of 40 meters or 130 feet to the surface. So if your cavern starts at, let's say, 20 meters, about 70 feet, then you have another 20 meters, another 60, 70 feet that you can enter, yeah? But as a secondary rule, you need to also always be able to see daylight, which is the biggest difference between cavern and intro to cave. You are close to the surface or relatively close and you can see daylight. You can also not pass through any restrictions and you must follow a guideline. For intro to cave, we leave the daylight zone behind and we also go past that 40 meter, 130 feet linear distance rule. There is still a depth restriction, a maximum depth restriction of 40 meters, 130 feet, because it is a no decompression course. However, as far as horizontal linear distance into the overhead environment, there is not a restriction per se. The only restriction there is that you have to follow one continuous cave guideline. So you cannot be making any navigational decisions, jumping off of the line or following T's, so that on your way back you do not need to make those somewhat complicated decisions. And you cannot swim through a restriction that is narrower than 3 meters, 10 feet. Yeah. So that actually still leaves plenty of room for cave diving. One continuous line, but I would say, I'm not gonna say unlimited linear distance into the cave, but quite far. I think our maximum cave penetration distance was 600 feet. So that is some 250 meters, yeah? Correct me if I'm wrong. And that was plenty, yeah? When you look behind, there is definitely no daylight. Now, what do you learn? We learned a variety of skills. It all starts with buoyancy, trim, positioning in the water. We were using a side mount system. You could do this on back mount doubles as well, as long as you have a redundant gas supply. We use side mount, and you start with finning techniques, right? So of course, frog kicking, trying to stay off the bottom, as many caves may have a silty bottom composition, back finning as well, and a variety of kicks, shuffles, flutters, etc. It is very important to be proficient in that before even entering in the overhead environment. If you silt out the overhead environment, you've created a massive safety issue, of course. Then there are also a variety of safety skills that we need to master. Yeah, if you are already a side mount diver, you are perhaps familiar with valve drills, shutdown drills, and air sharing drills. So those have to be mastered to the most proficient degree possible, of course. Other skills that we learn are line laying. So even though you typically follow a fixed cave line, as per the restriction of your Intro to Cave Diver certification, you do need to get to that cave line. Most of the times, cave lines will be in the overhead environment so that they're out of sight of people who are diving in the open water. So you do need to be able to make a physical connection from the open water to the cave line, and learning how to do that is one of the skills as well. Then, as we are in the overhead environment, we learn what to do in case things go wrong. So of course, there is once again the air sharing exit, yeah, following the line, but there's also a variety of blind diving situations. What does that mean? If we get a silt out, if we get a loss of visibility, how do we find our way out of the overhead environment? How do we follow the line when we can't see? That was super interesting. A lot of people find this challenging. I do have some experience with blind diving, as I am an adaptive techniques instructor trainer, so I do teach how to teach people with physical limitations as well as visual limitations. But it's super cool because you are suddenly 100% dependent on tactile reference. Yeah? We even go as far as to learn how to do this while sharing an air source. So this is unlikely, of course, to be in an overhead environment on side mount where one diver is out of air and we have a complete loss of visibility all the way to the exit. That would be a super extreme situation. But of course, you want to train for those extreme situations in hopes that the situations you encounter are less extreme. Another one that I thought was very, very interesting was a loss of visibility away from the line and how to find the line. Yeah, so you're of course again blindfolded, which is a very extreme way, of course, of simulating a loss of visibility, and then fixing a reference point and trying to find the exit line. Yeah. So all in all, these are relatively challenging skills, even if you are an experienced diver, but they are super crucial. I can't stress enough how important it is to not attempt cave diving or even cavern diving without formal training and without somebody giving you their blessing that you are good to go. I'm very happy with this training. I will definitely be pursuing cave diving further, and of course I will use those newly learned skills to also be creating more episodes about this topic. It's actually very interesting, and I always, before my cenote diving experiences, thought cave diving was dark, narrow and creepy, but actually a lot of caves are absolutely majestic and gorgeous, and they don't at all have the claustrophobic feeling that I thought they would have, especially when they are in an amazing aquifer system like here, where the water is super clear. It's actually, in my opinion, almost there's more to see than in open water because there are so many intricate formations. So super cool. I'm also very grateful that I decided to choose the instructor over the agency. Ultimately, the person you learn from and the standards they hold you to is what's going to influence most how you as a diver end up acting. And we definitely put all our focus on safety. Yeah. So all in all, this took us 6 days. Yeah, the cavern and intro to cave diver training, and there is about a 3-4 days remaining for the full cave diver certification. Should we choose to pursue that later, which I actually am already 100% convinced I will. I just now would like to get super proficient and super experienced, especially if I want to take you guys, the camera, the lights into the caves. I really need to be 100% competent and confident that can be done safely. So tomorrow I will be launching an episode with all the diving equipment that we used on the cave intro to cave diver training, because I'm sure everybody's also curious about that. But this is so far my experience taking the IANTD Intro to Cave Diver training. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to subscribe to the Dive Saga channel, and I will see you next time.